reading, "Research participation needed. Hello, my name is Brian and I'm inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete." This was then followed by a rather professional-sounding disclaimer from the OP, as well as his email and full name, Brian Kohberger. Now, requests for surveys like this aren't exactly uncommon on these subreddits, especially from students much like Brian. But the questions in this one are a bit strange, asking things like, "How did you travel to and enter the location that the crime occurred? Before making your move, how did you..."
What the fuck? Niggas moving like the FBI. Why are you... I know it's a survey, but why are you asking that much information? I'm pretty sure that's like a little too much, right?
"You approached the victim or target. Before leaving, is there anything else you did? How did you leave the scene?" However, the DeSales University email ID and the fact that the survey was hosted on an official-looking website suppressed any suspicion people might have had about its legitimacy. It's unclear how many people actually completed the survey, but Brian must have had some luck because he reposted the same request on many other subreddits over the next month. What none of the participants knew, however, was that this survey would end up becoming evidence for one of the worst crimes in Idaho's history. The police first became aware of the situation on November 13th, 2022 at around noon after receiving a disturbing 911 call traced to...
Oh yeah, this is about the Idaho murders, where those 4 college kids got murdered. R.I.P. Yeah, hey, that's crazy. I didn't know he was involved in that.
Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah.
911 location of your emergency. Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. What is the address of the emergency? 1122.
The caller was sobbing so hard she could barely explain what was happening. Then another girl grabbed the phone from her and told the dispatcher that her roommate was unconscious and not breathing. Officers rushed to the scene, expecting the worst outcome. However, nothing could have prepared them for the brutally gruesome scene they were about to walk into. The house, located on Kings Road, was the off-campus residence of several University of Idaho students. And upon arrival, the officers saw bloody remains of 4 of these students scattered throughout the house. All 4 of them had numerous lacerations and stab wounds, and had tragically already passed away by the time help arrived. According to later autopsy reports, the 4 were attacked by likely the same person at around 4 a.m. One of the surviving roommates, who later called 911, remembered seeing a masked stranger roaming around the house around that time, but she was too intoxicated to trust her own vision and passed out shortly after locking her bedroom door.
What? What? She could have gone slimed, and you see a masked man in the house, and your first thought is like, oh yeah, maybe I'm just tripping, you know, I should go to sleep in my room after I just saw a masked man with probably a big ass knife roaming around the house. I should really fall asleep in my bedroom. Like, nigga, what? Bro.
Crime scene investigators arrived at the scene shortly after the police and began looking for clues. Unfortunately, the only thing they found in the house was the leather sheath of a knife under one of the victims. This finding would prove extremely important later, but at the time it did little to help investigators identify the killer. The DNA present on it, for example, wasn't in the FBI's database. Though what made the case even harder to solve was the complete lack of motive. Nothing was missing from the house, and there were no signs the perpetrator had done anything other than commit the murders. With no other option, investigators began analyzing CCTV footage from around the region. And that's when they discovered a white Hyundai Elantra speeding away from the area shortly after the estimated time of the crime. Further analysis revealed that the same car had been circling the victim's house hours before the incident. Tracking this vehicle led to 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger, the same Brian Koberger who had posted this survey on Reddit months earlier.
Yo! That was the same nigga?
Had a master's in criminal justice and was pursuing a PhD at Washington State University. That said, he had no real connections with the victims.
This doesn't make any sense because I've studied criminal justice before. I've been in the class. So you're telling me that you're going into the studies about being a criminal investigator, and then later on you commit a crime yourself? Like, nigga, what? This, bro, what?
His presence in the general vicinity of the incident wasn't strong enough evidence to issue an arrest warrant either. So the investigators looked deeper, and using his phone data confirmed that he'd visited the house many times in the past. He also turned his phone off for several hours around the same time as the incident, something he had never done in years. He likely thought that keeping his phone off would prevent law enforcement from tracking his location. But this sudden break-in pattern stood out even more, giving authorities the go-ahead to arrest Brian. However, tracking him down turned out to be far more difficult than investigators had anticipated. By the time they caught on to him, he was long gone from his university. And after a weeks-long manhunt, Brian was finally located and subsequently arrested on December 30, 2022. He was found hiding in his parents' home in Pennsylvania, over 2,500 miles away from the crime scene. DNA samples taken after the arrest also matched the sample found on the knife sheath perfectly, further confirming that Brian was the one investigators were looking for. And while he kept denying the allegations at first, he eventually confessed to everything in exchange for a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He stood trial on July 23rd, 2025, and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. His conviction also put his Reddit
But nah, that is crazy though. That is low-key crazy foreshadowing. That's actually crazy. Bro was trying to get reassurance so he could commit a crime himself. That is fucking crazy.
Survey requests in a much different light. Brian was trying to learn how other criminals carried out their crimes and the mistakes that got them caught so the same didn't happen to him. Though, one thing that's been completely missing from any of these findings is his motive. Why would a seemingly well-adjusted man on path to a doctorate degree commit such a heinous crime, especially when he didn't even know his victims beforehand? Well, the most popular theory states that his actions were the result of a deeply unwell man developing an irrational hatred for women. You see, Brian suffered from visual snow, a condition where the patient sees black and white flickering dots all around them. The constant noise can make life difficult and cause other psychological issues, something Brian himself was well aware of. As he wrote in a Visual Snow discussion forum, "I always feel as if I'm not there, completely depersonalized. Mentally, I experience fog, lack of comprehension at sometimes, feel like my life is a movie, depression, no interest in activities, constant thoughts of death, anxiety, poor self-image."
Nigga, he should have gotten help. He should have went to the mental hospital or some. But they didn't pick up on it. It was already too late. Now his ass is in jail. And that's where he belongs to.
Poor social skills, no emotions. I feel like nothing has a point to it. When I get home, I am mean to my family. This started when Visual Snow did. I felt no emotion along with the depersonalization. I can say and do whatever I want with little remorse. His irrational hatred for women also manifested in his day-to-day life. It was the primary reason he was fired from his position as a teacher's assistant, and was even caught harassing women at a brewery a few months prior. Now, most analysis of Brian's reasoning end here, but from what I've seen, his motive might have been a lot deeper and involved his admiration of infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. Brian apparently did a lot of—
Oh, hell no, bro. What the fuck? This nigga was obsessed with serial killers too? Yeah, no.
online research about Ted Bundy both before and after committing the crime. Investigators also found a selfie Brian took with a smile on Mount Rainier, one of the remote locations Ted Bundy often visited to commit his crimes. According to an ex-detective and crime expert, maybe he wanted to pick up where Ted Bundy left off. Fortunately, his plan wasn't as foolproof as he'd expected, allowing the authorities to put him behind bars before he could hurt any more innocent people.
As he should, bro. He should be in jail. In jail, bro. Ain't no fucking way, boy. Ain't no fucking way.
A throw and to follow. Near the end of his comment, OP also mentioned that they did report Big Farm if the extent of were burned to the woods. Fortunately, they managed to escape unharmed and lived the local and Brazilian federal police. On /11th of February 2017, a throwaway Reddit account made it On the 7th of February 2017, a throwaway Reddit Brazilian federal police. On the 7th of February 2017, a throwaway Reddit account made a disturbing post on r/legal advice seeking help to save their unborn child. The post read, "I'm pregnant and being investigated by DCS. Hello, I'm 29 years old, happily married. My husband and I are college educated, have respectable, stable jobs, own a home in a nice neighborhood. We're basically as prepared as anyone can be to start a family. I'm almost 9 months pregnant with our first child. The problem is that 11 years ago, when my husband was a freshman in college, he was arrested for possession of marijuana. It was a large enough amount that he was charged with a Class D felony. Our jurisdiction is very harsh regarding marijuana, but not
She said her addiction was harsh?
that he was charged with a Class D felony. Our jurisdiction is very harsh regarding marijuana, but not intent to deal. He pleaded guilty and did his time in probation without a problem, passing every drug test along the way. He has not touched marijuana or any other illegal substance since, and we rarely even drink and haven't at all in over a year. I have no criminal record and have never done drugs myself. It was a stupid mistake he made as a foolish 18-year-old, and he's worked hard to put it behind him. Someone has apparently contacted child services in our area and informed them that we are drug users. This accusation is being
What? Sue them niggas, bro. Take them niggas to court. What the fuck?
taken very seriously
Yo.
because of my husband's record. We have been as cooperative as we could be with our caseworker. We've been interviewed, our home has been examined, and she found nothing remotely suspicious or incriminating. We've both taken drug tests and passed. Our caseworker says that everything looks just fine so far. Unfortunately, she also says that there's still the possibility that our child could be taken from us in the labor and delivery ward, and that we won't be allowed to take her home. I was devastated and horrified to hear that. When I asked why, she said it was not up to her, and we'll have to wait and see, which made absolutely no sense to me. What gives? I feel like there's something she isn't telling me, but I have no experience with DCS, and I'm not aware of anything we could have possibly done wrong.
Them niggas are probably lying to her, bro. Probably going to try to take her child. They're probably going to take her child, bro. No.
I know they'll have to test my daughter for drugs when she's born, but she has not been exposed to drugs. Nothing more than prenatal vitamins, not even Tylenol, and I already proved that by passing a drug test. I'm scared and confused. Do I need a lawyer? I have anticipated spending our savings on our new daughter/parental leave, but I will use that money for a lawyer if I have to. This was a tragic situation all around. The fear of losing their first child just minutes after birth is overwhelming enough. Not to mention the physical stress OP must have been under, which could have negatively affected her and by extension her baby's health. Most people who came across this post sympathized with the OP and tried to help the best they could. Some suggested continuing to cooperate with the authorities, while others told the OP to lawyer up as soon as they could. But for a large number of people, something about the whole situation just didn't sit right. I am a former Indiana CPS investigator/assessor. Something here is not making any sense at all, unless the law has changed greatly in the last few years when I left the department. As of this moment, you are pregnant, correct? You don't have any children. They're investigating the fetus? Former CPS worker here too. Agree with you. CPS does not investigate pregnant women with no current children. Something is not right. They urged the OP to take a closer look at the investigation, maybe even call CPS and DCS directly and inquire about the ongoing investigation. Even then, none of these commenters could have expected just how correct they would be. The truth came out on February 22nd when the OP returned with a very important update, stating, "I contacted and met with a lawyer and explained the situation to him. He seemed to agree that something was very fishy. To make a long story short, the woman handling our case has no affiliation with DCS. I'm still in complete shock. We went straight to the police. They're taking this very seriously. I can't give a lot of details because it's an ongoing investigation, but she seems to have been a very skilled..."
I knew it. That's why I said that seems so suspicious. That seems so suspicious. Like why? Why would they do that knowing that you have a clean background, right? Clean background. You have no kids. It would make zero sense.
...well-researched liar. I never would have known anything was amiss without the advice of this subreddit and the intervention of my attorney. I feel like a complete idiot, but the instinct to cooperate unquestioningly when faced with an intimidating authority figure is strong. I haven't had the baby yet. We're staying at a trusted family member's home until the baby is born. My OB and the hospital we'll be delivering at have already been informed of the situation and will be taking the appropriate security measures. I'm still freaking out, but we're taking every precaution for the safety of my child, and hopefully everything will turn out okay. Thanks again, everybody, truly. However, while the OP's situation had a somewhat happy ending, it's hard to imagine what would have happened if she hadn't turned to the internet for advice. Whoever this imposter was clearly did her homework. She knew about the husband's past felony and had enough legal knowledge to pose as a government worker for months without getting caught. An even scarier thought is what this imposter was planning to do once she had the newborn baby. The best case scenario would have been a legal adoption in exchange for money, but there were far worse possibilities for what could have happened to that infant. Luckily, the crisis was averted before it happened. That said, I wasn't able to find any reports of this imposter ever being identified or arrested. Having such a dangerous person still out there could be disastrous for who knows how many vulnerable families. Interestingly, while looking for reports on this individual, I came across an article about the police in Greenfield, Indiana looking for a woman who impersonated a DCS worker. This was from back in 2014, 3 years before the OP made her post. In other words, there's a possibility that the police in Greenfield were looking for the same person. Maybe she somehow avoided getting arrested and went after the OP years later. On a similar note, a 44-year-old woman named Lisa Nakrelli was arrested in June 2023 for impersonating a CPS worker and trying to kidnap a 4-year-old boy. She later claimed that she was just trying to scare the parents a little for leaving their son unattended. Fortunately, the court did not buy her excuse one bit. She is still awaiting trial, but if convicted on all charges, she's looking at up to 12.5 years in prison. This incident happened in Ohio, a neighboring state of Indiana. Put simply, there's a non-zero chance that Lisa was the very person Indiana police were searching for in 2014, and the same woman who posed as a DCS officer in front of the Reddit OP. If this is the case, she likely moved to Ohio after getting exposed in Indiana and tried pulling the same trick all over again. Though I should mention that this is nothing more than an educated guess on my part based on everything we've seen.